I'm gonna make popular games realistic in Photoshop, starting with Flappy Dunk, which I actually didn't know was that popular, but it is, and I think it would be interesting to see this come to life. So first I added a basketball stadium background, which I eventually took out, but next I added a basketball and added some lighting and shadows. But now I need to cut out these wings because they're way too big. So I'm just gonna pick a feather and then just go with the grain. This kind of looks normal, so I'm just gonna erase everything except for what I cut out. This cutout also isn't really the best, so I'm just gonna go around it and clean it up. Now let's add our wings onto the basketball and add a little shadow behind it. But if you didn't notice, these wings are black and we need to make them white. So I'm just gonna go to the levels and make the output more white and then take out all the saturation. Next, I'm gonna duplicate the wings and then put them on the opposite side and add some shadows. But now let's change the background because this sucks. I'm thinking of making it blue like we're in the sky because, I mean, it does have wings, so it's probably flying. So I'm just gonna add some random clouds in the background and then blur them a little bit, and here's our finished product. The next app we're making realistic is one of the most iconic mobile games, and it's called This game was released in 2012 and was actually playable on the PlayStation Vita, and it actually won the People's Voice Award for Best Music / Sound Design at the 2020 Webby Awards. So first I drew an outline on the character and then filled it in, but after that I needed to make the outline look more like hair, so I went around it with a different brush to make it less sharp. Next I copied the mouth from the original and then found this mouth from a similar angle, so I thought it'd be perfect to add in. So I shaped it up and erased the parts I didn't want and added a lip texture to the monster's lips. I added some shadows and highlights to the lips to give them more depth, and then added a tongue texture on the inside of the mouth, which worked pretty well. So next I added a fuzzy rug kind of texture onto the monster and then went around the outside of it again and made it look more like hair. And then I made the teeth more yellow. I drew the spot for his eyes and then added a skin-like texture on each side and added an eyeball to each one. After that I added some eyelids and some small shadows and finally changed the eye color to yellow. So as cursed as this is my realistic version of my singing monsters. I have more videos like this coming out soon, so if you want to see them, don't forget to press the subscribe button, and if you're enjoying this video, then hit the like. Monopoly is one of the most popular board games, and it also has an app, so let's make this cursed as well. I mean realistic. First, I'm going to replicate the background color and just add a texture on there, and then I'll add a suit. Next, I'm going to trace over the character's head and fill it in for later, but let's do the same thing with the hat. So we'll just fill that in with black and then add a green stripe at the top. After that, I'm going to add a skin texture and retrace some other things like the mouth, tongue, and the eyeballs. Now let's add some eyebrows and shape them up with the warp tool, and I'll just do the same thing with the other side. Following that, I'm going to redraw the M on his suit and make it look all shiny. I also removed the tie because he doesn't have one of those in the original. I'll add some shadows below his head and then add a texture to the top hat, but this is way too bright, so we're going to change that with the levels. And we'll also add some highlights on the edges of the hat. But I also need to add some shadows coming from the hat, so I'll do that as well. I realized the hair on the side of his head is pretty similar to the eyebrows, so I thought I'd just use those to make it. I added a texture to the tongue, and next I added an ear and blended it in with the skin. I found a perfect mustache, so I placed it on his face and made it white. I also made a nose for him and added some nostrils and also added some eyes. So this is definitely something, but here is the final image. So the last two designs kind of got weird because I want the realistic versions to still look like the original versions, and that kind of gets weird sometimes because the Monopoly guy's head to body ratio is actually crazy. It's definitely not human-like, but this next one is going to be a lot better because it has more realistic items, and that app cover is Brawl Stars. This game was made in 2018 and was downloaded over 400 million times. It was created by Supercell, who has made a lot of big games, and Brawl Stars was its 4th game to surpass $1 billion in revenue. To start off, I'm gonna create a circle for the hole in the middle and place a bunch of metal textures around the side and make them the same color as the original. After that, I'm gonna erase the unneeded parts and make it look similar to the original cover. Now let's add this little dip on the bottom and also add some shadows on the outside. Following that, I'm gonna add some dirt in the hole that we made, and now let's change the lighting on it by making it darker and then put the skull in there and adjust the lighting. And if you notice, the skull has a little bit of a green tint to it, so I'm gonna kind of take that out a little bit. But we have to make half of the skull red, so I'm gonna use the brush tool to add some red and fill it in. Now I tried to draw this horn about like 20 different times, and it looked horrible every single time except for this one time. So I filled that in and added some horn textures on top of it and added some shadows. But I also added some lighting to make it look like there's a little bump on the head from the horn. I made the horn a red kind of color. I fixed the shadows and highlights a little and finally got a color that looked good. So next I drew the halo with the brush tool and added an inner glow, an outer glow, and a bevel and emboss. After that, I placed it under the metal part because the placement in the original cover doesn't really make sense. But I added some lighting coming from the halo, and that's basically it. So here's my realistic cover of Brawl Stars. My favorites are the first and last one because they actually look good, but I still think it's fun to look at the weird ones instead of scrapping them, even if it doesn't look the best. Because even if they look bad, they still look funny because of how cursed they are, and in the end, it's all entertainment, so let me know which one was your favorite in the comments. If you enjoyed, check out one of these videos.